The vintage Mustang's chrome gleamed under the dealership's fluorescent lights, like a promise I'd never be able to keep to myself. It was past midnight, and I should have been home with my wife, but these days home felt more like a stage where I played the role of the disappointing husband. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Logan Pierce, and I own Pierce Luxury Motors in Millbrook, Massachusetts, a city that thinks it's Boston but smells more like broken dreams and overpriced coffee. At 40, I've learned that success is measured differently depending on who's holding the ruler. To my customers, I'm the guy who finds them the perfect vintage Porsche or pristine BMW. To my wife, Selah, I'm the guy who isn't rich enough, famous enough, or interesting enough for her Instagram feed. I was buffing out a microscopic scratch on the Mustang's hood when I heard her voice drifting from the office speakers. She was live streaming again from our bedroom, and I'd forgotten to turn off the security system's audio feed that connected to my phone. "Oh my God, you guys, you should see what Logan got me for our anniversary." Selah's voice carried that fake sweet tone she used when she was about to destroy someone. "It's this necklace. I guess it's supposed to be vintage or something, but honestly, it looks like something from a thrift store. Real women wear real designer pieces, not whatever this cheap junk is supposed to be." I stopped polishing. The necklace had cost me $5,000. I'd spent weeks researching it, tracking down the original 1960s Cartier piece through estate sales and auction houses. It was genuine, documented, beautiful, and she was calling it thrift store trash to her 15,000 followers. "I'm literally throwing it away right now," she continued, and I could hear the clink of metal hitting our bedroom wastebasket. "Life's too short for fake luxury, am I right? My husband means well, but he just doesn't understand quality." The comments started flooding in. Laughing emojis, fire symbols, women agreeing that their husbands were equally clueless. My marriage had just become content for her audience, and I was the punchline. I drove home in silence, my mind spinning between rage and something colder, more calculating. Our condo was dark except for the blue glow from Selah's ring light, still streaming to her adoring fans about skincare routines and self-worth. The necklace was right where she'd tossed it, tangled among used cotton pads and empty product bottles. I picked it up, feeling the weight of genuine craftsmanship in my palm. The diamonds caught the bathroom light, throwing tiny rainbows across the mirror. "You're up late," Selah said from the doorway, not looking away from her phone screen. Even at midnight, she was perfectly made up, ready for her next post. "Just checking on my cheap junk," I replied, holding up the necklace. She barely glanced at it. "Logan, don't be dramatic. I was just being honest with my followers. They depend on me for real advice about quality." "Right, quality." I pocketed the necklace. "Tell me, what makes something quality in your expert opinion?" "Authenticity, proper provenance, designer recognition." She rattled off the words like she was reading from a luxury magazine. "This isn't authenticated, there's no designer marking, and I've never seen anything like it in Vogue." I nodded slowly. "Interesting perspective. Don't take it personally. I know you tried." She was already walking back to her ring light, probably planning her next post about ungrateful husbands and the importance of educating men about fashion. I went to my home office and pulled out the folder I'd kept from purchasing the necklace. Authentication certificates from 2 independent appraisers. Documentation tracing its ownership back to a Hollywood actress in 1967. A letter from Cartier's archives confirming its place in their 1960s collection. Insurance appraisal, $5,200. My wife was an influencer who'd built her brand on luxury lifestyle advice, and she'd just publicly declared a genuine Cartier piece to be worthless trash. Her followers trusted her expertise, brands paid her for her opinions, and she'd just proven she couldn't tell real quality from costume jewelry. I started planning. The next morning, I called my insurance agent and had the necklace officially appraised again, this time with video documentation. Then I visited Stanley Fox, an independent jewelry appraiser with 40 years of experience and a reputation that could make or break auction houses. "Beautiful piece," Stanley said, examining the necklace under his loupe. "Cartier, 1966, probably commissioned for someone specific. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Where did you find it?" "Estate sale. My wife thinks it's fake." Stanley laughed. "Your wife needs glasses. This is museum quality. I'd estimate current market value at $6,000, maybe more if you found the right collector. Would you mind putting that in writing?" "Of course. You thinking of selling?" "Something like that." That evening, Selah was preparing for another live stream, this time about investment pieces every woman should own. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm going out," I told her, straightening my tie. "Where?" She was contouring her cheekbones, transforming herself into the polished influencer her followers expected. "The Riverside Gallery opening. You know, the one you said was too boring for your brand." She shrugged. "Have fun with the museum crowd." What she didn't know was that the Riverside Gallery opening was also being attended by half of her influencer friends, including Mara Vieira, known online as V, who was Selah's biggest rival in the luxury lifestyle space. They maintained a public friendship that fooled their followers, but barely concealed their mutual hatred. The gallery was exactly what I'd expected: white walls, pretentious art, and people holding wine glasses like they were afraid the stems might break. I spotted V immediately, surrounded by her usual crowd of wannabe influencers and photographer friends. "Logan!" she called out, waving me over. "I didn't expect to see you here. Where's Selah?" "Home, working on content about investment jewelry," I said, loud enough for her group to hear. "Actually, I'm glad I ran into you. I wanted to get your opinion on something." I pulled out the necklace, now in a proper jewelry box with Stanley Fox's authentication papers. "Selah thinks this is fake, but I thought maybe someone with your expertise might have a different perspective." V's eyes widened as she examined the piece. Her followers might not know it, but she'd actually studied jewelry design before becoming an influencer. She knew quality when she saw it. Logan, this is incredible. The setting, the cut of the diamonds, the craftsmanship, this is definitely authentic Cartier, probably from the 60s. She looked up at me, confused. "Selah really thinks this is fake?" "She threw it in the trash last night, called it thrift store junk on her live stream." The group around us had gone quiet. Someone was definitely recording this conversation, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. Wow. V was trying to process this information without appearing too excited about her rival's mistake. "I mean, maybe she just needs better lighting to see the details." "Maybe." I carefully packed the necklace away. "Or maybe she's not as much of an expert as her followers think." I left the gallery knowing that by morning, the story would be everywhere in their small influencer community. Selah had built her reputation on knowing luxury from fake, and I'd just provided evidence that she couldn't tell the difference. The next few days were beautiful to watch. Selah's comments sections started filling up with questions about the necklace. Screenshots from the gallery had made their way to Instagram, showing V examining what was clearly an expensive piece while discussing Selah's mistake. "People are asking about the necklace," Selah said over breakfast, scrolling through her phone with increasing frustration. "What about it?" "They're saying you showed it to V, and she said it was real." She did say that. Well, she's wrong. I know quality when I see it. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. Sometimes the best response is silence, especially when someone is digging their own grave with words. "I'm going to prove it," she announced. "I'll take it to a real appraiser and show everyone that I was right." "Good idea," I agreed. "Stanley Fox downtown is supposed to be excellent, very respected." She nodded, not catching the trap I'd just set. Fine, I'll go this afternoon. Stanley Fox was waiting for us when we arrived at his shop. I'd called ahead, of course, explaining the situation and asking him to be thorough in his assessment. He was a professional, but I could see the amusement in his eyes when Selah confidently placed the necklace on his examination table. "I need you to confirm that this is costume jewelry," she announced, her phone already recording. "My husband was deceived by whoever sold it to him, and I want to help my followers understand how to spot fakes." Stanley put on his loupe and began his examination, taking his time with each element of the piece. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Selah's confidence began to waver. "Well," Stanley finally said, looking up from his equipment, "I can definitively tell you that this is not costume jewelry." Selah's face froze. "What do you mean?" "This is an authentic Cartier piece from 1966. The hallmarks are correct. The diamonds are genuine and of exceptional quality, and the craftsmanship is consistent with Cartier's standards from that period." He handed her a magnifying glass. "You can see the maker's mark here, and the setting technique here is signature to their workshop. That can't be right." "I have the documentation here," Stanley continued, producing the papers I'd had him prepare. "Current market value is approximately $6,000, possibly more to the right collector." Selah's phone was still recording. Her followers were watching her receive expert confirmation that she'd called a $6,000 Cartier necklace thrift store junk and thrown it in the trash. There must be some mistake," she stammered. "No mistake," Stanley replied kindly. "Your husband has excellent taste. This is a museum-quality piece." The drive home was silent except for the sound of Selah frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to do damage control. But the internet doesn't forget, and her influencer rivals certainly wouldn't let this opportunity pass. By evening, the story had exploded across social media. Chakra Necklacegate was trending in luxury lifestyle circles. V had posted a thoughtful piece about the importance of proper authentication before making public judgments, while other influencers shared their own stories about nearly missing valuable pieces due to assumptions. Selah's follower count started dropping. Brands began quietly distancing themselves. Her expertise, the foundation of her entire online presence, had been publicly demolished by a jewelry appraiser and her own recorded words. "This is your fault," she said that night, pacing our bedroom like a caged animal. "You set me up. I bought you a beautiful anniversary gift, and you threw it away while calling it trash on social media," I replied calmly. "I'm not sure how that's my fault. You knew what would happen when you showed it to V. I thought your friend might appreciate seeing a genuine vintage piece. Was I wrong to assume you'd want me to share your interests with your social circle?" She couldn't argue with that logic without admitting that her social circle was built on competition and sabotage rather than friendship. The real damage came over the following weeks. Selah's confidence was shattered, and it showed in her content. Her posts became defensive, over-explaining every choice and purchase. She started second-guessing herself, which made her followers second-guess her too. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. The story of the car dealer who knew more about luxury than his influencer wife had become local legend. Customers started coming to me specifically because they'd heard I could spot authenticity that others missed. But Selah wasn't going down without a fight. She started rebuilding her image by attacking mine. "Logan thinks he's so smart," she said, during a live stream about dealing with difficult partners. "But he doesn't understand that influence is about more than just knowing facts. It's about connecting with people, understanding their needs." She began a subtle campaign to undermine me, suggesting to her remaining followers that I was controlling, that I'd deliberately embarrassed her, that I was threatened by her success. The comments started appearing on my business reviews. "Owner is manipulative. Treats his wife badly. Can't be trusted." I recognized the writing style. Selah was creating fake accounts to damage my reputation, the same way she'd built her own following with purchased engagement and manufactured drama. Two could play that game. I started documenting everything: screenshots of the fake reviews, records of when they were posted, IP address logs from my website showing they all came from our home computer. I also began recording our conversations, legally, since Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. "You're trying to destroy my business," I said one evening, my phone recording in my pocket. "I'm just being honest about what kind of person you are," she replied. "My followers deserve to know the truth." "The truth? Let's talk about truth. Should I tell them about the followers you bought, the engagement pods you participate in, the sponsored posts you never disclosed properly?" Her face went pale. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been married to you for 3 years, Selah. I've watched you build this empire of lies, and I've kept quiet because I thought it made you happy. But now you're coming after my livelihood, and that changes things. You wouldn't dare. Try me." But before I could make my next move, Selah made hers, and it was bigger than I'd expected. The call came at 6 in the morning from my business partner, Jake Morrison, who handled the financial side of Pierce Luxury Motors. "Logan, we have a problem. Someone leaked our client list to our biggest competitor." I sat up in bed, instantly awake. "What do you mean, leaked?" "Henderson Luxury Cars just sent personalized offers to every customer who's bought from us in the past 2 years. They're offering to buy back their cars at premium prices and upgrade them to newer models. They know exactly what each person paid, what they're driving, everything. Our client list was confidential, stored on my password-protected computer at the dealership. Only 3 people had access: me, Jake, and the bookkeeper we'd hired 6 months ago." "It gets worse," Jake continued. "They're also spreading rumors that we're going out of business, that our inventory is stolen, that our certifications are fake." I looked over at Selah, who was pretending to sleep, but was clearly listening to every word. "I'll be there in an hour," I told Jake, then hung up and turned to my wife. Interesting timing for this attack on my business. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because Henderson Luxury Cars is owned by Teddy Grayson, and Teddy Grayson has been liking every one of your Instagram posts for the past month?" She sat up, dropping the pretense. "So what if he likes my posts? Lots of people do." "Lots of people don't have access to confidential business information that somehow ended up in his hands." "You're paranoid." I was getting dressed, my mind racing through the implications. Teddy Grayson was old money, the kind of guy who'd inherited his business and his arrogance in equal measure. He'd been trying to buy me out for years, and when I'd refused, he'd started spreading rumors about my inventory and my reputation. Now he had Selah helping him. "How long have you been feeding him information?" I asked. "I haven't been..." "Selah, I installed security software on our home network last month. I can see every website you visit, every file you access, every email you send." This was a bluff, but a good one. "How long?" Her silence was answer enough. At the dealership, Jake and I spent the morning doing damage control. Our insurance was solid, our certifications were legitimate, and our reputation with long-term customers was strong enough to weather most storms. But the leaked client list was a serious problem. "Whoever did this had to have physical access to your computer," Jake said, reviewing the security logs. "The files were copied directly, not hacked remotely." I thought about all the times Selah had visited the dealership, all the opportunities she'd had to access my office computer while I was with customers or in the service bay. "I know who did it," I said. "What do you want to do?" "First, we're going to plug the leak, change all passwords, upgrade our security, make sure this can't happen again. Then, we're going to return the favor." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning Teddy Grayson just declared war on my business using my wife as a weapon. I think it's time he learned what that kind of warfare actually looks like." I started with research. Teddy Grayson might have inherited his money, but he wasn't particularly smart about managing it. His dealership was leveraged heavily, his personal spending was outpacing his income, and his business practices were questionable at best. More importantly, his relationship with Selah wasn't as secret as they thought it was. I hired a private investigator, not for anything illegal, just for documentation of public activities. Within a week, I had photos of Selah and Teddy having lunch at expensive restaurants, shopping together at high-end stores, and entering his downtown condo together on multiple occasions. But the real gold mine came from Selah's own social media activity. She'd been geotagging herself at locations where she was clearly with Teddy, posting photos that showed his reflection in mirrors and windows, sharing stories that referenced conversations they'd obviously had together. She was documenting her own affair and broadcasting it to thousands of followers who were too caught up in her lifestyle content to notice the patterns. I compiled everything into a comprehensive timeline: dates, locations, financial records showing Teddy paying for her shopping trips and restaurant bills, screenshots of her posts that inadvertently revealed their relationship. Then I waited for the right moment to use it. The opportunity came when Selah announced she was hosting a luxury lifestyle summit at the downtown Marriott, a networking event for influencers, brands, and industry professionals. Tickets were $200 each, and she was expecting over 300 attendees. Teddy was listed as a featured speaker on the topic of investment vehicles, luxury cars as assets. Perfect. I bought a ticket under a fake name and spent the next 2 weeks preparing my presentation. The summit was everything I'd expected: overpriced coffee, motivational speakers talking about authentic brand building, and a room full of people taking photos of themselves taking photos. Selah was in her element, networking and posing, playing the role of successful entrepreneur. She'd managed to rebuild some of her credibility after the necklace incident, positioning herself as someone who'd learned from her mistakes and was now more careful about authentication. Teddy's presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m., right after lunch, when everyone would be alert and engaged. I made sure to get a seat in the front row. He was smooth, I'll give him that. Talking about luxury cars as investment vehicles, showing slides of appreciation rates and market trends. The audience was eating it up, especially when he started showing photos of rare cars from his inventory. The key to success in this market, he said, clicking to his final slide, is authenticity. Knowing real value when you see it, and having the expertise to guide your clients toward genuine quality. That was my cue. I stood up and started clapping slowly. Wonderful presentation, Teddy. I especially appreciate your emphasis on authenticity. He looked confused, but smiled professionally. Thank you. Do you have a question? Actually, yes. I'm curious about your expertise in recognizing authentic value. For instance, would you be able to spot a genuine 1966 Cartier necklace, or would you mistake it for costume jewelry? The room went quiet. Selah, who'd been standing at the back, went pale. I'm not sure I understand the question, Teddy replied, but his confidence was wavering. Let me be more specific. I'm Logan Pierce, owner of Pierce Luxury Motors. You've been trying to destroy my business using stolen client information provided by my wife, who's been having an affair with you for the past 3 months. Chaos erupted. Phones came out. People started recording. Selah was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the stage. That's a serious accusation, Teddy said, but he was backing away from the microphone. It's a serious situation. I pulled out my folder of evidence. I have documentation of every lunch date, every shopping trip, every time she's been at your condo. I also have records showing that confidential business information was accessed from my wife's computer and used to target my customers. Security! Selah was shouting. Get him off the stage! But the security guards were just hotel staff, and they weren't about to get involved in what was clearly a domestic dispute playing out in front of 300 social media influencers with cameras. The really interesting part, I continued, projecting my voice over the noise, is how this whole thing started. See, my wife built her reputation on being able to identify luxury goods. But when I gave her a genuine $6,000 Cartier necklace for our anniversary, she threw it in the trash and called it fake jewelry on her live stream. Someone in the audience shouted, "I remember that! Necklacegate." Right. So when her credibility was damaged by her own ignorance, she decided to destroy my business instead of rebuilding her reputation honestly. She partnered with Teddy here, who's been trying to buy me out for years, and together they've been spreading lies about my inventory and stealing my client information. Teddy was trying to leave the stage, but I wasn't done. The funniest part is that while they were plotting to destroy my business, they were documenting their entire affair on social media. Selah's been geotagging herself at restaurants where Teddy paid the bills, posting photos that show his reflection, sharing stories about conversations they've had together. I turned to address the audience directly. You're all social media professionals. You understand how digital footprints work. Every post, every tag, every story creates a record. And when someone is stupid enough to document their own betrayal and broadcast it to thousands of followers, well, that makes things very easy for people like me. The room was completely silent except for the sound of phones recording and cameras clicking. So here's what's going to happen, I said, looking directly at Selah and Teddy. You're going to stop targeting my business. You're going to return any confidential information you stole, and you're going to publicly apologize for the lies you've been spreading. And if we don't? Teddy asked, trying to salvage some dignity. I smiled. Then I'll release everything. Every photo, every financial record, every piece of evidence showing how a luxury car dealer and a lifestyle influencer conspired to commit corporate espionage because they were too incompetent to compete honestly. I gathered my papers and headed for the exit. Oh, and Selah, I'll be filing for divorce on Monday. You might want to start looking for a place to stay. The aftermath of the Luxury Lifestyle Summit was swift and brutal. Within hours, videos of my confrontation were trending across every social media platform. Luxury lifestyle lies and necklace-gate revenge dominated the conversation, with thousands of users dissecting every detail of Selah and Teddy's exposed affair. But I wasn't done. Public humiliation was satisfying, but I needed to protect my business and ensure they couldn't retaliate. Monday morning, I met with my attorney, Patricia Wells, who specialized in business litigation and had handled several high-profile cases involving corporate espionage. You have a solid case, she said, reviewing my documentation. The theft of client information, the coordinated attack on your business reputation, the financial losses you can demonstrate, this goes well beyond a simple divorce. What are my options? Civil lawsuit for damages, restraining orders to prevent further harassment, and we can push for criminal charges if the district attorney is interested. The evidence is overwhelming. What about the divorce? Massachusetts is a no-fault state, but adultery and financial misconduct can still affect asset division. Given that she used marital resources to damage your business, we can argue for significant compensation. I authorized her to proceed with everything. Selah wanted to play hardball, and I was happy to oblige. The restraining orders were served Tuesday morning. Selah was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of my dealership, accessing any of my business accounts, or posting about me on social media. Teddy received similar orders, along with a cease and desist letter demanding the return of all stolen client information. By Wednesday, the story had been picked up by local news outlets. Local car dealer exposes wife's affair and business sabotage ran on 3 different channels, complete with interviews and analysis of the social media evidence. My phone was ringing constantly, customers calling to show support, competitors trying to poach my suddenly famous business, and reporters wanting follow-up interviews. Jake handled most of the calls while I focused on the legal proceedings. Thursday brought the first real surprise. Patricia called me at the dealership with news I hadn't expected. "Logan, we need to talk. I've been reviewing Selah's financial records as part of the divorce discovery, and there's something you need to see. I met her at her office an hour later. She had Selah's bank statements, credit card records, and business documents spread across her conference table. "Your wife's influencer business is completely fraudulent," Patricia said without preamble. "The majority of her followers are purchased. Her engagement is artificially inflated through bot networks, and she's been taking payment from brands for sponsored content while delivering fake metrics." I suspected some of that, but it's worse than you think. She's been running what amounts to an advertising fraud scheme. Brands have paid her hundreds of thousands of dollars based on false audience numbers and fake engagement statistics. Patricia handed me a detailed analysis prepared by a digital forensics expert. Less than 20% of her followers are real people. The rest are bots, inactive accounts, and fake profiles. Her viral posts were artificially boosted through paid engagement farms. Is this illegal? Wire fraud, mail fraud, possibly RICO violations if we can prove it was an organized scheme. The FBI has been cracking down on influencer fraud, and this is exactly the kind of case they're interested in. I stared at the documents, processing the implications. Selah hadn't just betrayed our marriage and attacked my business. She'd been running a criminal enterprise the entire time I'd known her. "There's more," Patricia continued. "Teddy Grayson was involved. His dealership was paying her for promotional posts, but they were also coordinating to manipulate online reviews and search results for both their businesses and their competitors. Including mine. Especially yours. They've been running a systematic campaign to damage your online reputation for over a year, not just the past few months. The scope of their conspiracy was staggering. While I'd been focused on building a legitimate business, they'd been constructing an elaborate network of fraud, manipulation, and sabotage. What do you recommend? We turn everything over to the FBI and let them handle the criminal side while we pursue civil damages. With this level of fraud involved, you could be looking at significant compensation. I authorized her to contact federal authorities immediately. The FBI raid happened the following Tuesday. I wasn't there to see it, but the local news coverage was thorough. Agents seized computers, phones, and financial records from both Selah's home office and Teddy's dealership. The footage of them being led away in handcuffs was played on every local news station. My phone started ringing again, but this time it was different. Customers who'd been targeted by fake reviews were calling to apologize. Competitors who'd been victims of Selah and Teddy's manipulation were reaching out to compare notes. Even some of Selah's former influencer friends were contacting me, claiming they'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't known how to prove it. The story went national when the FBI announced the charges: wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The case was being presented as part of a larger crackdown on social media fraud and fake influencer schemes. Selah's empire collapsed overnight. Her social media accounts were suspended, her brand partnerships were terminated, and her remaining real followers abandoned her in droves. The lifestyle she'd built on lies and manipulation was gone, replaced by legal bills and federal charges. Teddy's situation was even worse. His dealership was shut down pending investigation, his personal assets were frozen, and his wealthy family publicly disowned him to protect their own reputation. But I still wasn't satisfied. They'd tried to destroy everything I'd built, and I wanted them to understand the full consequences of that choice. The opportunity came when I learned about Selah's final desperate attempt to salvage her situation. 3 weeks after the FBI raid, I received an unexpected call from Mara Vieira, Selah's former rival and supposed friend. "Logan, I need to warn you about something," she said, her voice tense. "Selah's been reaching out to people, trying to get them to say you set her up, that you planted evidence, that the whole thing was a setup because you were jealous of her success. Is anyone buying it?" "A few people, unfortunately. She's also claiming that you've been abusing her, that she was afraid to leave you, that the affair was her way of escaping a controlling relationship." I felt my jaw clench. Even facing federal charges, Selah was still trying to manipulate the narrative and destroy my reputation. "There's something else," V continued. "She's planning some kind of public comeback, a live stream where she's going to tell her side of the story and reveal the truth about what really happened." "When?" "Tomorrow night. She's been promoting it on her backup accounts, trying to get as many people as possible to watch." I thanked V and hung up, my mind already working through possibilities. Selah wanted one final performance, one last chance to spin her story and paint herself as the victim. She was counting on people's short memories and their willingness to believe a compelling narrative over documented facts. But I had one more card to play. I called Patricia Wells and explained the situation. "Can we legally record her live stream? It's being broadcast publicly, so yes. But why?" "Because I think she's going to incriminate herself even further, and I want to make sure we capture every word." "Logan, she's already facing federal charges. What more could she possibly say that would matter? You'd be surprised what desperate people will admit when they think they're winning." The next evening, I set up multiple devices to record Selah's live stream from different angles and platforms, ensuring I wouldn't miss anything due to technical issues or account suspensions. She'd chosen her setting carefully, a generic hotel room that could have been anywhere, with soft lighting that made her look vulnerable and sympathetic. She was wearing minimal makeup and simple clothes, playing the role of a woman who'd lost everything, but was ready to fight back with the truth. "I know many of you have been following the story about my situation," she began, looking directly into the camera with practiced sincerity. "I've been silent because my lawyers advised me not to speak. But I can't stay quiet anymore, while my reputation and my life are being destroyed by lies." She paused for effect, letting the comments roll in. Her audience was smaller than before, but still substantial. Several thousand viewers who were eager for drama and ready to believe her version of events. "The truth is that my husband Logan has been controlling and manipulative for years. He isolated me from my friends, monitored my activities, and became increasingly angry about my success as an influencer." I watched the comments, seeing a mix of support and skepticism. Some viewers were buying her story, but others were pointing out inconsistencies and asking for evidence. The necklace incident wasn't about me not recognizing quality, it was about Logan setting me up to fail. He deliberately gave me a piece that looked like costume jewelry, knowing I would react negatively, so he could humiliate me in front of my followers. This was interesting. She was essentially admitting that she couldn't tell the difference between real and fake jewelry, which undermined the expertise her entire brand was built on. And the affair with Teddy wasn't really an affair at all. Teddy was helping me document Logan's business practices because I suspected he was selling stolen cars and forging authentication documents. Now she was getting into dangerous territory. Accusing me of criminal activity without evidence could constitute defamation, and claiming that corporate espionage was actually whistleblowing was a legal strategy that would never hold up in court. But she wasn't done. "I know this sounds crazy, but I think Logan has been planning this for months. The FBI raid, the media coverage, even some of the evidence against me. I think he orchestrated all of it to get revenge for my success." Several viewers in the comments were pointing out that the FBI doesn't conduct raids based on one person's revenge plot, but Selah was committed to her narrative. "I have proof that Logan has been manipulating social media algorithms to boost his own business while suppressing mine. I have evidence that he planted fake reviews and created bot networks to make it look like I was the one committing fraud. This was a complete fabrication, and a dangerous one. She was essentially confessing to the crimes she was charged with while claiming I had committed them instead. I'm going to fight these charges, and I'm going to expose the truth about what my husband really is. He's not the victim in this story. He's the mastermind behind a scheme to destroy successful women who threaten his ego." The live stream continued for another 30 minutes, with Selah making increasingly wild accusations and contradicting herself repeatedly. She claimed to have evidence she couldn't produce, witnesses who wouldn't come forward, and documentation that had been stolen by law enforcement. By the end, even her most supportive viewers were expressing doubt in the comments. Her story was too elaborate, too convenient, and too contradictory to be believable. But the most damaging moment came when someone in the comments asked her directly, "If Logan was controlling and abusive, why didn't you leave him instead of having an affair?" Selah's composure cracked for just a moment, and her real personality showed through. "Because I deserved better than what he could give me. I built something amazing, and he was holding me back. Teddy understood my worth and was willing to invest in my success." She'd just admitted on camera that the affair wasn't about escaping abuse. It was about finding someone who could fund her lifestyle and business ambitions. The live stream ended abruptly when her account was suspended mid-broadcast, probably due to the defamatory statements she'd been making. I immediately sent the recordings to Patricia Wells, who forwarded them to the FBI and the prosecutor handling Selah's case. "This is incredibly helpful," Patricia told me the next morning. "She just confessed to the fraud charges while trying to blame you, and she admitted that the affair was financially motivated rather than the result of abuse. Her own words have destroyed any sympathy defense she might have mounted." The recordings went viral within days, shared across social media as an example of how not to handle a public relations crisis. Legal analysts used clips from the live stream to explain why defendants should never represent themselves in the court of public opinion. Selah's final attempt at manipulation had backfired spectacularly, providing prosecutors with additional evidence while destroying any remaining credibility she might have had. 2 months later, both Selah and Teddy pled guilty to federal fraud charges. She received 3 years in prison and was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution to the brands she'd defrauded. Teddy got 5 years and forfeiture of his business assets. The civil lawsuit was settled out of court, with Teddy's family paying significant damages to avoid further publicity. Selah had no assets left to claim, but the divorce was finalized with me receiving full ownership of our shared property and business interests. My dealership thrived in the aftermath. The story of the car dealer who exposed an influencer fraud scheme brought customers from across New England, and my reputation for authenticity and integrity became a major selling point. 6 months after Selah's sentencing, I was closing the dealership late one evening when I noticed someone had left a package by the front door. Inside was the Cartier necklace, professionally cleaned and polished, with a note from Stanley Fox. "Thought you might want this back. Still beautiful, still authentic, still worth more than the people who didn't appreciate it." I held the necklace up to the light, watching the diamonds catch the reflection of the street lamps outside. It had started as an anniversary gift for a woman who threw it away without recognizing its value. Now it was a symbol of everything I'd learned about authenticity, worth, and the difference between what something appears to be and what it actually is. I locked the necklace in my office safe, not because it was valuable, but because it represented something more important than money. The knowledge that real quality doesn't need to be performed or promoted or validated by an audience. It simply exists, waiting for someone wise enough to recognize it. The next morning, I would open my dealership and help customers find cars that matched their needs and budgets, building relationships based on honesty rather than manipulation. I would continue building the business I'd started, but with the confidence that comes from surviving someone else's attempt to destroy it. Selah had taught me that some people see relationships, businesses, and even truth itself as raw material for their personal brand. But she'd also taught me that authenticity always wins in the end, even when it takes longer and costs more than the alternatives. The necklace sat in my safe, genuine and beautiful, and completely indifferent to whether anyone appreciated it or not. Just like the business I'd built, the reputation I'd earned, and the life I was finally free to live on my own terms.